If you are quarterly planning, it is time to stop. That is an outdated method that does not get the same results as this other approach. I have been using it for 5 years now, and I have 5X'd my results. So I'm going to share with you today what that method is so that you can start getting better results as well.
Hi, I'm Heather Hubbard. I went from being a lawyer and partner at one of the largest firms in America to becoming an online personality and successful entrepreneur. I know what it takes to rise to the top. I also know all too well the toll it can take on your health and personal life. So how do you shine bright without burning out? How do you chase joy while achieving success? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow podcast.
Welcome back to Hustle and Flow. I am your host, Heather Hubbard, and we are on episode 243, Ditch Quarterly Planning. Ditch Quarterly Planning. Use this method instead that I am going to share today, which 5X'd my results. If you know me, you know that I am a planner. I am a high achiever. And even when I used quarterly planning, I achieved a lot of really big goals. I'm not dissing quarterly planning at its core, but it is no longer the most effective way to plan. And that may sound controversial, especially since there are so many products out there, books out there based on quarterly planning, 90-day planning. There are planners out there related to 90-day planning. I get it. And if you're using those things, I'm not knocking it. I just want to introduce to you this alternative. It was introduced to me, as I mentioned, 5 years ago, and a friend just mentioned it in passing. So here's what it is. It is so simple, but I've got the results to back it up. Okay. It is so simple. So she shared with me, she said, I have a friend who no longer does quarterly planning because it doesn't really fit into her lifestyle. Okay, I'm intrigued. What about quarterly planning is problematic for someone's lifestyle? And she said the way the year works for her is really around seasonality and the way that we as a culture, as a people, tend to approach the year. Okay, I'm listening. She said she does thirds. So not quarters, but thirds, which I guess you would call a trimester, but please, let's not do that. So I don't have a good name for this, but you do it in thirds instead of quarters. And so she said, January to April really is in many ways like the new year. Spring has sprung. Also, if you have kids, it is really the spring part of their school year. And like that is a chunk in and of itself. And then the next chunk is May to August, the summer months. This is where school is letting out or it is starting back, but the sun is out, the daylight is longer. And even in business, we're just in a bit of a different mode. And then you have September through December, which is kind of like the fall month, right? The kids are back in school and everyone is pushing to reach those year-end goals, but you also have the holidays. The light, right, is getting less again. So she was like, she does it in like the 4-month intervals instead of 3-month intervals. And she said it has drastically changed her life. And I am always someone who is willing to experiment and try something new to see if it will work for me. And so I tried it out because it actually made sense. I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense because otherwise, if you are quarterly planning on the calendar, it's January to March, April to June, July to September, and October to December. And especially planning in that like June to July period, it's a weird time in terms of business and life. It's not really where the progression seems to happen or when things tend to shift. So I was like, I'll try this out. Okay, so here was the wild part because the friend did not share that it actually got better results. And that's not why I was testing it out. But not only did I agree that it fit the seasonality and just the shifts better for me, but I actually got better results with it, which blew my mind because I was not looking for that. And I've actually tried to do some research into how did quarterly planning, become a thing? When did it become popular? And why is it that doing 4 months instead of 3 months actually works better? Was not able to get good, clear answers, but I do have some thoughts. So, what I want to do on the podcast today is share a little bit of those thoughts, especially for those of you who are just analytical thinkers, highly critical, and you're just like, well, I need to understand why. And then I'm going to take you behind the scenes. So, now that you know that we are doing this in 4 months, January to April, I just finished April. So I just did my review and then I just planned for the summer months. And so I want to share with you some of those goals, some of those results. And this is how we're going to talk about this before and after is I'm going to tell you what would have been, right? So what the numbers were on March 31st. So if I was doing quarterly planning, like this would be the result. But by switching it, I had a different result. And you would think it would be better, right? Because you've got 30 more days. But it shouldn't be 5 times better or 3 times better or even 2 times better. And I'm not talking about from January. I'm talking about the end of March to the end of April. That's when the results 5X'd, 3X'd, 2X'd. It is wild. Okay. So that's what I want to share with you today. And then hopefully I will have inspired you to go test it out and experiment as well. And the thing is, if you enjoy it better or it gets you better results, like who really cares about why? It's just like, okay, I'll take this magic trick any day of the week. Okay, but let's talk about why, or at least these are my thoughts as to why it might actually be more effective. So, whenever quarterly planning came about, I don't really know when that was. But from a business perspective, especially like with stocks and corporations, you have quarterly earnings. And so, that's something I could have looked at. Like when did that happen? But so corporations have been doing quarterly forever. It is like built into our regulatory system. And so maybe that's part of where that came from. I mean, it's easy. It makes sense. What I read was that quarterly planning helps in that it's not as short as like a week or a month when it's really hard to accomplish anything, but it's not as big as a year when it also is going to take you a lot longer. And so like you want to be doing check-ins way closer than just 1 year. Makes perfect sense. But here's why I think 4 months is better than 3 months. And I don't think it was always the case. If you think back to the 70s or the 80s or even the 90s, we didn't have cell phones. Well, there were some cell phones, but if you were around then, you know that they were as big as my Stanley Cup. But like there were beepers, there were pagers, there was no email, there was no text messaging, there was no 24/7 cable streaming internet. We didn't have all this, okay? And so one, I think it was less likely that you were going to be distracted. There was just less information coming in. We say that we don't communicate as much anymore, that the younger generations don't know how to communicate, but I don't actually think that's true. I think we're communicating more. It's the substance isn't there, right? Like, so it's now really shallow and it's really quick. And, used to you'd have to walk down the hall or pick up the phone and have a conversation. And because you were going to have to do that, you weren't doing it as often. You would gather your thoughts. There was more substance to it. You were actually able to focus and get more done in 3 months than you can now. like time flies now because the amount of the phone and the email and just the constant distractions around us all of the time. We are moving at such a faster pace. I actually think it takes longer to reach a goal because we aren't as focused. But also, because we are so distracted and we can't keep our attention on anything, and we can get on AI, we can get on Google, we can see results immediately. I think we also have different expectations. I think we expect to see things happen faster than they do. And so if you get to the end of a quarter and you've not been as focused and you didn't reach the goal, then you're more likely to give up or switch goals or switch strategies or switch your focus because that didn't work. And so then we're back to like, let's just throw spaghetti at the wall. Whereas I think, and this is just my theory, I think that when people were less distracted and they knew things took longer, like you would get a fax or mail. Like those were the options. You could get something in the mail or you could get a fax machine that took forever and a day. For those of you all that remember that, faxes were not fast. And so, but that was like the faster method to get something. And so our expectations were just different. We knew things that took longer. So that when you were probably looking at quarterly results back then, not only were you more likely to make progress, your expectation to have fully reached the full goal or seen the full results may not have been there because we used to have a belief that things took longer. Whereas now, I think when we use quarterly planning, it's like, no, like we're going to have done the thing. I need to see the results. This is my theory as to why quarterly planning became popular and it no longer is as effective as it used to be. Just my thoughts. If you have any thoughts as to why that might be, leave a comment below. If you're on YouTube, and if you're not on YouTube, you can head on over to YouTube to check out this episode and leave a comment because I'm just curious. Why do you think, if you do this as well, why do you think it might be that way? All right, so let's talk about some real world examples, and I'll use myself. I'm going to go over some of the goals that I had for the first 4 months, and I'm going to share the markers. Okay? All right, so let's start with the first example, and that one relates to weight loss. And look, I know this can be a triggering topic for some people. I'm not saying that weight loss should ever be a goal for you or not be a goal. But I also know it is a common goal. We know that it is the most common goal at the beginning of every year. And for those of you who know me, I had an adrenal tumor that occurred back in 2020, and my weight increased drastically with all of that cortisol and all of the steroids. And now that the steroids and the cortisol are gone, I have struggled with not only not gaining weight, but like getting back to where I was before I was sick. And that was a goal of mine this year, was to make progress towards that. At first, I did not actually have a goal to get back to that pre-tumor weight, but I'm making really good progress. So I actually am thinking, and this will be in a few episodes from now because I'm going to share my summer plans, but I'm actually thinking that that might be my goal. We will see. But I had the goal that I just wanted to get healthier again. I wanted to feel better in my own body, in my own skin, and it is what it is. And I was not interested in Ozempic or anything like that for many different reasons. That it doesn't even matter. I'm not going to go into that. If that's what you want to do, you do you. I have no interest in doing that for me. So I decided that I was, going to do the good old method of I'm going to work out. I'm going to watch what I eat. And if you listen to episode 241, where I shared how to break through plateaus, you already know a little bit of this history. So if you're interested in breaking through plateaus or a little bit more about this, you can go back and listen to episode 241. But I was using the keto diet. Now, so this is how I started in January. And I don't just wait until the end of a quarter or a third to see the results. Like I track it regularly. And I was not getting the results that I wanted. I was actually really disappointed in those weekly results. And so by the time I hit March, because I was halfway through my third, I decided that I actually needed to shift something a little bit more because what used to work for me was no longer working. And so I've been using the Mayo diet, which is all about just basically eating a balanced meal according to the food chart. And that started working. That helped me break through that plateau, start to see some results. So I was like, great. But when I then compared the results from March 31st, so I was already doing the Mayo diet at that point, to April 30th, I was like, you have got to be kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. I was blown away. Okay, so here's the breakdown. And if you are on my email list in the newsletter, you're going to get a visual of this so that it's super easy for you to see. If you are not on my email list, you should be. I share things there that are nowhere else, not even the podcast. And if you'd like to join, it's absolutely free. All you have to do is go to heatherjoyhubbard.com/subscribe. Okay, so here are those numbers. Let me pull up the email because that is the best visual for me. All right. So here's the effort. Here's the effort that I put in. I'm going to tell you that before I tell you the results. Okay. I went to 60 dance classes. That's a lot, right? 60 dance classes. I went to 40 red light therapy sessions. And if you're like, what is red light therapy and what does that have to do with weight loss? You can go check it out. For me, the reason I was doing red light with it is one, and I was doing like the full body. So it's like you get in and it's like, it would be like a tanning bed, but okay, look, I've already had melanoma. I'm white. We're not doing tanning beds. Okay. No. But it's like, that's what it looks like. So you get in, it's all red light. One is it actually helps you recover. So all of that dancing would allow my muscles to recover easier so that I could go more often. And then also just from an overall health perspective, one of the things with the cortisol, the adrenal tumor, was that it really thinned my skin. And I had been doing a lot of things that wasn't really helping with the elasticity of my skin. And the red light therapy was something that was supposed to help with that as well. And I have noticed a difference. So 60 dance lessons, 40 red light therapy sessions, and 68 days of tracking on the Mayo Clinic diet. So I started maybe I guess a little bit before March, but mostly started in March. Okay, so that's what I did. That was the effort that went in. And the results that I got, they were that I had lost 12.5 pounds. There's a million different ways that you can measure your results, but I was measuring based on weight, so 12.5 pounds. Okay, now here's where I need you to sit down, all right? Because let me tell you how much weight I had lost on March 31st. 6.5 pounds. Y'all, 6.5 pounds. So March 31st, I had lost 6.5 pounds, which would have been my results with a quarterly diet. And I might have been really frustrated and been like, fuck it. Right? Like, I don't know if y'all ever get a case of the fuck it. So you're like, I put in all this effort, right? Because at that point, I would have had 30 some days, 40 days of the Mayo Clinic diet app. Tracking the dancing was probably like, that would have been, I can't do that math, but it was consistent throughout. So 45 days of dance classes, 30 of the red light therapy sessions. That last month, I lost 6 pounds. It was like I 2x'd my results. And this is where I go to, I really don't know the science or the magic behind this little trick. As I discussed with our neural pathways in 241, like, I don't know, maybe like it really started to find the groove at that point and it then really started working. I mean, I don't know, maybe by then my muscles had gained, more weight and so my metabolism is improved. Like, I don't know. I don't know, but I know that like with a snowball, it's a snowball effect. This is what I'm talking about. How are the results that much different in 3 months versus 4 months? And it's not just weight loss. Okay, so let me give you another example. I mean, I love this stuff. You give me a good trick, a good hack, like I'm all over it. And it is more enjoyable because it kind of goes with the seasons. All right, so let's talk about my writing. So this is a writing goal that I had. So I shared in a previous episode. Oh my goodness, what episode was that? In case anyone wants to go back and listen to it. Mm, Episode 235. My goal to get a book deal in 2025. All right. So I shared on there that this was the big goal for 2025. Like that is the big goal. So obviously I had goals within that first third to help me get there. And part of what I shared was I had shifted from writing the book to writing the book proposal because for a million different reasons, I had a bunch of mind junk and I got stuck with actually writing. So I did not necessarily have a word goal. That's what so many different programs and people just want you writing constantly, like that you should have the word goal to get the book written. And I had kind of let that concept go. I was like, I just want to make progress towards the book proposal. I knew that the book proposal would not be done probably. Thought it might be done by the end of May. But okay, so here's what happened. Here's what happened. Let's talk about the effort that I put in. Let me go back to my email visual. The effort that I put in. So I signed up for 3 different programs. I'm a strategist by heart. So the way that I develop strategy is getting information from different perspectives and different sources and able to come up with my own opinion. So I joined 3 different programs. I joined Lovey Ajayi Jones, the Book Academy. And so what I did was I watched all the videos. I did all the homework. I showed up and did stuff, right? So I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm a good student. The other thing that I joined was Hay House Writers Community. And they also have videos and homework. And I just did it. I did what I was supposed to be doing. I was a good student. That way I could get, so by the way, Lovey is a 4 times New York Times bestseller. So she's an author. And Hay House, they are a publisher. And then they also have an editor that works with them. So that was the publisher editor perspective. And then the third one that I joined was Lucinda Literary. And I'm also in her mastermind on that. I say her. Lucinda Halpern that's what it's named after, but they've got a lot of different agents there. So I did that homework. Okay. So I'm just doing the work. All right. The proposal is almost done. I'm still on track to getting that done when I thought I would. But here's the wild part. By doing the homework, I started writing the book in addition to the proposal, and I have 10,000 words. 10,000 words written, which was not really a goal, but it was a byproduct and it's fabulous. But here's what's wild to me and what I wanted to share with you was March 31st. March 31st, I had written 2,000 words. I 5X'd the results in 1 month, right? So I had 2,000 words written for the proposal in the book in 3 months, and then 8,000 more in the last month. And I track this stuff again so that I can do these reviews, but I don't know it at the time. So it's always like, wait, what? This is wild. And I've always had better results, but for whatever reason, I think this time it kind of blew me in a way that it never has before. So that's what I was like, I have to share this. I have to share this because how many people are doing quarterly planning and they then move on or they change their goal or they change their strategy and they're not getting the results because they give up before the miracle happens. Right? The miracle happened in that 4th month. That's when it all came together. And I was doing the work. The input did not change. The effort did not change. I finally got in a groove where I was right? All cylinders were pumping and going. And I was just able to really be in flow in April. I actually have another example But I'm looking at the time. Like, do we have enough time to go with that? Okay. We'll quickly do it. All right. So another one of my goals, in all fairness, I did not set this goal for initially for the first 4 months, and that related to speaking. I knew that I wanted to get my speaking going again later in the year. But as I was working with the agents and working on the book proposal, they were like, we would really like to see you go ahead and have speaking lined up again because it helps with the proposal itself. So I would be lying if I said that this had true consistent effort for 4 full months. That is not the case. But the results all did kind of come in there towards the end. And I at least wanted to share it because I think there is a takeaway also related to effort versus results. Okay. So, what I did to just quickly get that out the door and to at least get it started, and this was probably maybe 6 to 8 weeks. So, like maybe half of the time of this third. So, I created a PDF one sheeter because I know a lot of people listening, like you also like to speak. So here's what I did on that. I did a PDF one sheeter, which I don't actually think, no, it was, I'm like, was it one sheeter? Yeah. So it had like the 3 offerings. And then I think I also had like maybe a page that had some testimonials or my professional bio, but the offering itself was in one sheet. And then I did a personal email to 7 contacts, people I'd worked with before that I really liked. And then I did a follow up with 4 of them. And I also did 1 RFP submission and 2 phone calls. So that was the effort that I put in. And by the end of March, I had 0 gigs booked. And again, I had actually started at that point. I was probably a month in at that point. But by the end of April, I had booked 3 speaking gigs. And I actually think that there's already 1 or 2 more in the works that'll probably happen by May. But that just goes to show that things don't happen immediately. And part of why I wanted to include this example was because it just goes to show what you got to do to get the results you want. So this is a little bit of a sidebar. This was like I didn't know if it had time to come into this episode or not. But notice I reached out to 7 people. I emailed 4 to follow up. I called 2 to follow up, right? Like I didn't just reach out once and let it go. And I tried to actually deliver that one sheeter that would answer their questions before they even had to ask me. So it's not just one and done. You got to keep doing things to get it booked. But isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Like 2x, 3x, 5x just by adding 1 more month. So here is what I would love to share with you if you're like, I want to try this out. And don't worry about if it's at the beginning of the month. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like you can start today or you can run yours a little bit differently. Whatever. It doesn't have to be the perfect. If your seasons run different or you think of them in different ways, do what works for you, but play with this concept of extending the review. This is part of my bigger planning, the strategy pyramid, all of those things. And so I did just want to share with you that you can grab a copy of the free blueprint, which used to be for many years in an ebook. But again, talk about things changing. Ain't nobody got time to read an ebook. Nobody wants an ebook. So we are totally doing an overhaul on that. And it is going to be in a workbook format with tiny little lessons with actual exercises for you to do to put them into action. So if you want to take your insight and put it into action, then you're going to want the blueprint. It will come out at some point in May. So if you go ahead and put your name and email in now, again, it's free. You will get it as soon as it comes out. And depending on when you're listening to this, it might already be out, in which case it'll just immediately be emailed to you. But if you want that, go to heatherjoyhubbard.com/blueprint. And I'll put that in the show notes as well. But it includes all 7 steps to how to achieve, any goal that is going to bring you joy. It's not going to burn you out. It's going to keep you in a place of success and satisfaction. And it's going to include the breakdown of how you plan and strategy. And I also wanted to give you a heads up that in 2 weeks from now, on episode 245, I'm going to share how you shift your goal setting so that you actually have a strategy that's going to work. Like, how do you know what effort to put in to get the best results? So that's going to be in 2 weeks. And again, I'm going to share my summer plans with you to kind of demonstrate how I go through that planning process. Next week, we have a special episode with Gina Knox, AKA Money's Mom, all about debt and wealth building strategies. So you don't want to miss that either. So go ahead and subscribe to the podcast so you get all of the upcoming episodes. But I really encourage you to try this out. Ditch quarterly planning, switch to thirds. And if you're doing another program that does quarterly planning, you can easily shift it. For example, I do Almond Costigan. I should say Tom too. It's not just Almond, it's Almond and Tom. They're quarterly marriage alignment retreats, and Almond, if you're listening to this, I apologize because I've probably never told you this. I just made it work with the way that I plan now in thirds. And so that's what we do. We don't do 4 a year, we do 3 a year. It just works for us and we love it. And also, if you are in a committed relationship, definitely go check out their stuff. I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well, because it's really, really, really good to get you and your partner on the same page with some of those long-term goals. Okay. That is it for today. Have a great day. Have a great week. Ditch the quarter. Embrace the third.
Thank you so much for joining me for this week's podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, give the episode a like and leave a comment below so we can keep the conversation going. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future episode or announcement. Listening on Apple, Spotify, or another podcast app, you can watch the video and join in the after-show conversation by visiting hustleandflowpodcast.com.